Hey, it's Todd Fox here from Halos in the Infield podcast, and I'm here with my other co-host.
Greetings from Ulysses, Texas. This is Fernando.
And we have a special guest today, all the way from
Chatsworth in the San Fernando Valley.
There you go.
There you go.
It's the one, the only
Mark Gubicza here, fellas. What's going on, Todd? What's going on, Fernando? How you doing, guys?
We're doing great.
Nothing to complain about here.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
No problem, guys. Just looking forward to talking some baseball and whatever else we want to talk about.
Awesome. And for those that don't know, which I don't know why you don't, but Mark Gubicza is on color commentary for the Angels, and he does a great job. He is, some say, the Tony Romo of baseball, but I think he's by himself. I think if other commentators call away the games that he does, or at least, brings out those moments, because you see, I'm telling you, Mark, I just want to give you a compliment here. You do a Tony Romo in the booth, man. I mean, you call these pitches before they come. You say, hey, this guy, really need a slider. I think he's going to go with a changeup or something like that. And boom, there it is. You know what I mean? You have that feel. It's great.
Yeah, I think, guys, what it comes down to is just, from all the years playing and sitting in the dugout as a starter, you got those 4 days in between starts. So I always felt that I was pretty good as far as reading, body language. Mm-hmm. So I could see that, especially at our booth, we're at Angel Stadium. I mean, it is the best view, period. I'm telling you, I've been almost every stadium in baseball. Our view is so good. You could see what the batter's trying to do, if he's gripping the bat too much, if he's moved a little closer to the plate, his facial expressions. You see what the pitchers are doing. You see what the fielders are doing. So I always been a big believer. When I first started in this business, it was way back in 2001 when I, was still coaching high school baseball and trying to get involved in this world. And I remember this guy named Scott Ackerman, who used to do head of Fox Sports Net, and then he also ran the whole football pregame show with Howie Long and all the guys there, and Terry Bradshaw won a bunch of awards. He said, hey, listen, you got to tell me something that I don't know. I mean, when the game's on TV, it's obvious a guy hit a home run or a guy threw the ball 100 miles an hour. Kind of explain how that happened to you. And I don't want to ever know, or you ever say, that's a great swing. Well, what does that mean? He wants me. He always said, and he would bring me in, he'd be real critical of me. And I learned a lot from him because I sat back there and was like a sponge. I said, okay, I'll figure it out why that happened. Because I remember, like I said, I was a player watching all that and kind of incorporate it in the game. Take chances. I may be wrong. And there's times where I'm definitely wrong when I'm thinking he's going to try to hit the ball the other way and he ends up pulling the baseball, the hitter at the plate. Or I'm thinking, he's going to dive for this ball in the outfield. And instead, he's playing back on it. So there's going to be times where you're not right. But I always felt that if I'm watching a game, because I've been watching, even college basketball that KU won today. I'm watching Duke against Kentucky right now. I'm kind of thinking along what these players are trying to do. So that way I can give you as a viewer something to look for before the play actually happened. Because it's easy if you want to if you wanted to say, explain something after the play happened, okay, that's fine. But I want you to be kind of into it, almost like you're, I always go back to my favorite movie, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Watching, the original Indiana Jones, where that ball is rolling through there and the energy you get. I just want you to be ready for when some play happens. I know baseball at times can be a long game, but my whole goal was to make sure when you're sitting there watching it, I want you to enjoy it. I'll never, one thing I will never do, guys, I will never complain about the length of a game, because it's a beautiful thing. You get a chance to have a conversation with your friends, your family, but also something may happen during the course of a game that you're going to go back and, like, stuff that Trout has done, Shohei Ohtani has done, and Albert Pujols did too. I mean, all these great things that we got to witness on a daily basis watching Angel baseball. I always want to make sure that I go back and go, wow, that was pretty cool to see it. But I also want the fans to be able to enjoy that moment and let them feel that moment all the way through.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite things about baseball has always been just sitting back and watching the world pass me by. You know what I mean? You can sit there for, 3 hours and just relax. You can take in what's happening. I've always enjoyed the analytical side, the mental part of the game. So for that, baseball is the absolute best. Just sit back, enjoy, and really think about the game inside the game.
Yeah,
it's uncomparable to any other sport because of that.
And you're exactly right. I think it's a disservice for people to be critical of the analytic part of the game, because that for me, this is fun. I mean, I played, I've been retired now for quite a while, but I still feel like I can kind of learn so much from the game of baseball. And I've said this to a number of people I've talked to who work at Fangraphs and all the different baseball savant. And I always say, wow, if I had known some of these things as a pitcher back in the day, I think I might have been a little bit better. So I think that stuff is pretty cool. All the things you get to learn, but there's also, you still want to go and reach and have a conversation with somebody that just loves the purity of the game. So combining the both parts of the game right now, and I think we're seeing more of a meld towards the middle instead of going one way or the other way in the game. And I think that's why the game has gotten better. And that's why you see an exciting World Series where you have the Atlanta Braves, a team that everyone said we're done. You know, when Acuna Jr., who was arguably one of the greatest players, and by the way, one of my all-time favorite players already as a young player, out for the season, they were done. They made a couple, key acquisitions. Although at the time, nobody thought it was key acquisitions as far as their outfield. Boom, they're the world champs. So that's the beauty of the game, because baseball, no matter what, if a pitcher's hot or a guy's swinging the bat well, or they're making some plays, I've been a big believer, because I got a World Series ring in '85 with the Royals. Were we the best team? No, not even close. Toronto was so much more talented. The Cardinals were. We were down 3-1 in both series. We came back and won. We were down to the Angels in the division all the way through that season. We had to beat the Angels 7 of 8 games in September to win by 1 game to get to the playoffs. So you run into those things where team chemistry is so important. I know Joe Madden has talked about that a lot. The team didn't win a whole lot last year, not anywhere near where we all expect them to be. Injuries and blah, blah, blah. But there were some really good things about what we saw from the way the team played as far as battling through some key guys. I mean, you got so many guys out last year, yet they battled all the way through. So you kind of hope to bring that all together with all your superstars back in the lineup next year.
Yeah, that was the thing that we took out of last season was, Atlanta had a similar first half to us, being 500 for most of the time. And like you said, a couple acquisitions here and there. They got hit with injuries, like you said, but not as hard as we did. And do you think the Angels coming up into this season, obviously the acquisitions or just they seem like acquisitions, but the pitchers that came to the farm system showed you something in August and September? To me and Fernando have been talking, there doesn't need to be like the big, huge splashes, just fill in players, maybe one ace. But I mean, like, as far as like the need for pitching, it doesn't seem to be as like the need that we all thought it was, because I don't know if you felt the same way, but the bullpen was coming together really nicely towards the end of the season. And the starting pitching was giving you the innings. It was just the hitting was so bad because they were putting in players that normally don't play every day because of all the injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sold on Patrick Sandoval. I think he's going to be a star.
Yeah.
Jose Suarez was really, really good too. So I do think, though, guys, to get those pitchers to go to that next level, because I can only relate to this what I did when early in my career when I was young. You need a couple big time pitchers around you to learn.
Okay.
Not only just those conversations in the dugout, just watching as a young pitcher how that guy competes. How, say, like for the Dodgers, if you're Walker Buehler, watching Max Scherzer, how he competes. Yeah. Those guys like that are so invaluable. You need those aces. There's a big conversation. I saw that on social media today. What is the so-called ace? Well, for me, an ace is a guy that takes the ball every 5 days, will give you 7+ innings, gives your team a chance every time you take the mound to win. That's an ace. And when you're only scoring 1 run, that guy on the mound, that ace will win 1-0. So that is what an ace is. So you need those type of guys in your rotation. I think it's going to end up being maybe 2. You're always going to have a 6-man rotation when Shohei Ohtani is in your rotation. Now, Shohei Ohtani right now, for me, those last 12 starts, that was an ace. I mean, he threw the ball. What do you have, like 9 or 10 walks in his last 12 starts? I mean, that was incredible what he did. Everyone goes, well, his strikeout rate went down a little bit. I was like, no, I'm totally fine what he did. When he needed the strikeout, he got it. He got some quick outs. He used his cut fastball. He threw his breaking ball over for strikes. He did so many really, really smart things on the mound that I didn't know he had in him. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know he had that in him, to how to pitch. I always knew he had the stuff because he could throw 100 miles an hour, that nasty splitter. But he started throwing his slider more. He threw his curveball on occasion, his cutter. He kind of evolved into an ace pitcher. So you add in another couple of them. Raisel Iglesias, for me, very important for this team. He was so good. and I got to know him even more. Obviously, we were finally able to be down in the field in a dugout. What a joy to be around. I mean, he's got that infectious smile, but he's a guy that will take the ball every day, every day.
Yeah, he's
Multiple innings too, which is really not easy to find that as far as a closer. They're in that comfort zone to get 3 outs. He's fine getting 3, 4, 5, 6 outs.
And we saw that plenty of times this year.
Yeah. He was a real gentleman's gentleman, like signing autographs during games for little kids. And then he come out with that bulldog mentality in the 9th inning, just like, hey, stay away from me. I'm striking you out. Like, that was the kind of closer I don't think we've seen in Anaheim here since Frankie. So it was nice to see him. I agree with you there. One thing real quick on Ohtani. I did notice early in the season he was throwing a lot of pitches. He was, his pitch count was up before like 4th, 5th inning. I totally agree with you. Once he found that different way to pitch, he did become an ace. He grew up as the season went. I mean, he just got better and better and better.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought when you think about conversation for Cy Young Award winners in the American League, I think he'll get some votes. Obviously, he's not in the 3 finalists, but he'll get some votes, and deservedly so. I mean, he was 9-2. His ERA, 3.17 or whatever it was. But you look about, I know of at least 5 runs that came across for him when he was out of the game. That game in New York, everyone always talks about how he struggled, and he did.
Yeah.
There was a couple pitches in that course of that first inning. I think if he would have been normal, if we had, they should have been called strikes, but that's a whole different story. Left with the bases loaded, 2 outs, all 3 runs scored. Now, that changes your ERA. There was another game, too. He left first and second with 2 outs, and both of them scored. So that's 5 runs. You're gonna give up some runs with bases loaded with no outs, but bases loaded with 2 outs, generally you have a pretty good chance of getting through that. He didn't. But that being said, I mean, he was phenomenal. And, there was people talking about, well, he didn't face some of the best teams. And I right away said, I put it all out. He faced every good team. The only game he struggled was the Yankees, because they were saying that he missed some games. He pitched great against the Astros. He pitched great against Oakland. He pitched great against Toronto. He beat Boston. I mean, you look at the teams that he pitched well against. He pitched incredibly well against the White Sox.
Yep.
So he did everything. Well, I'll go on record. That's the best season in any sport I've ever seen anybody have. I mean, there's no one. I mean, I joked around with a couple people recently. I said it would be like Tom Brady last year, not only doing anything throwing the ball, but going out and having like 11 sacks and 4 interceptions. Well, I know for a fact he didn't do that one. So there's nothing that anybody's ever seen that Shohei. I mean, that unbelievable. I've never seen. I mean, I sit back now, guys, and I go, wow, we saw history. I mean, because all the comparisons between Babe Ruth and I tried to look as much stuff as you can. You can only read a lot of it. You don't really get much as far as video of any kind or any kind of tape of that. But they look at it and compare his numbers. I know it was a different. The baseball didn't carry like that, and strikeouts were different than as far as on the hitting side and the pitching side. But, the stolen bases, the triples, and all the other crazy stats. And besides the fact that, and I trust me, guys, when you pitch a game, that next day, every part of your body hurts. And yet he was playing the next day and hitting home runs and stealing bases. I mean, it's really – it's mind-boggling what he did. So I mean, that going forward with Trout, who is going to go down as the best baseball player we've ever seen. But you can't waste these kind of players, these generational type players, and not let everyone else see them besides us. We want the whole world to see it. We want to see the whole country see it. We want to see that in October and maybe even November 1st or 2nd.
So is it fair to say that you think that Shohei Ohtani is the most talented player you've ever seen?
Trout's really close. Bo Jackson was incredible too. Yeah. So, I mean, I think what Shohei did this year is the most incredible thing that I've ever seen. Now, yeah, it takes an incredible amount of talent, but as far as a superhuman being, Bo Jackson was pretty unbelievable. And to see that in person on the baseball field, and he gave me sideline passes for every Raider game at home at the Coliseum, and to watch that playing football too, I was like, wow. And then seeing Trout doing what he has done. I always say Mike Trout is a combination for me on the personal level of a combination of George Brett and Bo Jackson. You put George Brett's baseball skills and Bo Jackson's athleticism and wow factor, combine them together, and that's Mike Trout. So it's pretty cool to say we get to watch these guys, but like I said, I want everyone to see these two guys play because, like my family's back in Philly, and my brothers, they're always talking about, even today, Bryce Harper gets the Hank Aaron Award. And they're saying how great Bryce Harper, because they see him. They're
Yeah.
not, it's tough to stay up at 10:30 at
Yeah.
night or 10 o'clock at night to watch the Angels play, unless it's their home team they're playing. So it's hard for everyone to see it. The best way to do that is what you see what Trout has done in the All-Star game. You see what Shohei did, leading off as a hitter and then pitching the first inning and home run derby. All those things, people got to see that part of it, but they don't get to see it on a daily basis. The only way you do that is in the postseason.
And plus, being a winning team, people will stay up and make the effort to watch you if you're winning. So if you're around 500, it's kind of hard to follow, or some people don't put the time in. One other question I had for you going to Mike Trout, though. How cool was it to hang out with him at an Eagles game? I saw that video back in the day because he offered to take you out there, and you guys are sitting right in the end zone, man. How cool was that?
Yeah, it was crazy because here the schedule worked out so well. We were in Texas. It was on a Wednesday. We have an off day on Thursday, and then we have a game on Friday in Chicago against the White Sox. So, he asked me, hey, do you have any interest in going to the Eagles? That was a home opener after they won the Super Bowl. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So, and I, going on they got a private jet. So it was a few of us there, and Cam Bedrosian was in there too, and a few other people. This is flying there and going to that game. And I'm watching these Eagles players, whether it's Carson Wentz or Zach Ertz or anybody else on the team, Fletcher Cox. I got my Fletcher Cox jersey on watching the game.
Okay.
And I'm thinking these guys are all coming to say hi to him before the game. I'm like, man, these guys are in the midst of going into a major battle where they're going to get all beat up. Yet they all found time to high five Trouty and stuff. And just to be there for that game, because in my lifetime, I didn't think the Eagles would ever win a Super Bowl, ever.
Yeah.
And especially when Carson Wentz went down, got hurt that game against the Rams, as a matter of fact. And then, Nick Foles came in and put up a run that no one ever thought he would be able to do. It's magical that they did that and wanted to be able to be there, that home opener, thanks to Trouty. And I was just having a blast, because even going back to the Super Bowl the next year, so we're texting back and forth. He texts me from the plane, and he shows his phone, and they're all singing "Fly Eagles Fly" on the flight on the way out there. So there's a bunch of Eagle fans flying to Minneapolis. So it's pretty cool to have that relationship. I know growing up in that area, like, you're so passionate about sports, and that's why he's so passionate about bringing a championship to Anaheim again. And he wants the Angels to be so successful, because he knows it's a difficult place to play growing up in that area, in Philly area, because everyone expects to win. And I think it really hurts him, because everyone's going to ask him the same question. It'll be the same thing in spring training again. Hey, what's it going to take to get you to the postseason? Well, he does everything he can possibly do. I mean, it was a freak injury last year, and for him to be out from May to the end of the season, that definitely set everyone
Crazy.
For a long period of time. This team was right around 500, just maybe a game or two over 500, treading water without him. And then eventually it was very difficult having anybody in the lineup at all, position player wise, towards the end of the season. So guys were playing like a lot, and they weren't normally in that role. So I gave those guys a lot of credit. But even going back to Trouty getting and doing everything he can to will this team to win, you could see he's taking that leadership role even more so. And, when Albert had moved on too, he's got to that next level of knowing how important he is, not only playing. I mean, it's tough to automatically be the guy as far as a leader, because maybe you lead by example on the field. But I think he realized how important he is for this team going forward, that he has to even go to that next level to be able to will his teammates into playing even better than they're capable of playing.
Is he becoming more outspoken, you think, as a leader? Because I think that's where a lot of people, they don't tend to see, like, oh, who's the leader of the Angels? And they feel that it's got to be Trout, but then they don't feel that he's that outspoken guy. Does the public have that right, or is he taking charge of this team behind the scenes?
Yeah, he's taking his. I mean, when you think about when he first came out, Torrey Hunter was his mentor. Then it went to Albert Pujols. I mean, that's two amazing leaders, great human beings. Actually, just saw Torrey just yesterday. Every time he mentioned Trout's name, he's got the biggest smile on his face, because he got to witness it, and they were good friends. That Trouty has, he has taken over that role. You don't see it as much where it's going to be, whether it's on, in the dugout. You see it in the clubhouse. First of all, his preparation and his work ethic is incredible. you see it in the spring training, because if you get to get down there, hopefully, I mean, obviously this year will be a little easier in spring training to be able to be around the guys. Just seeing what he does, working out, doing better things, taking better routes in the outfield, doing whatever it takes to be a better outfielder to go along with the better, obviously still trying to improve swinging the bat, running the bases. But those little things are really important, because guys like Brandon Marsh and Joe Adell really took to the conversations. And I don't know if you remember, there was a game in Detroit where Joe Adell hit a grand slam and he had a quick conversation with Trouty before coming to the plate there. So those things are invaluable, because you need those quick conversations, because, these guys, these young guys, they already know that Trout's what he has done, but Trout's still young. He's still a young guy too. So you have those conversations and know there's going to be some ups and downs, but what you're going to do at that moment to slow the game down, which is so important as a hitter, even more so, I think, than a pitcher. You have to slow the game down, because if the game gets too quick, you grip the bat too firmly, things aren't going to go your way, or try to outguess the pitcher. You just got to go up with your game plan. And that's exactly what he was able to pass on to Joe Adell, and he hits that grand slam against the Tigers, that great comeback win.
Absolutely.
So if I could bring it back a little bit, I want to give the fans maybe a little introduction to who you were as a player. So you're drafted 31st overall, and that was in 81 by the Royals. You started your professional career by going 8-1. You had a 2.25 ERA. In 82, you missed almost the entire season due to injuries.
Mm-hmm.
In 83, 14-12 with a 2.72 ERA. And then that takes us to your first year making the playoffs in 1984. And of course, as you alluded to earlier, in 85, you were on a World Series team. So what does it mean to make the playoffs for the first time as a player? And how special is it to win a World Series? I would imagine, just like every other kid, that was your dream growing up. So walk us through both of those events.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, here the draft is, even going back to there in 81. So I'm in high school. Back in 1980, I'm at Game 6 of the World Series, where the Phillies are actually playing the Royals in the World Series.
Wow.
It's the first and only game I ever went to a game with my dad in my entire life. So we're sitting right behind the dugout in that World Series, Game 6. Their first base coach for the Phillies, his name was Ruben Amaro Sr. His sons, Ruben Amaro Jr. and David Amaro, both went to my high school. We were teammates on the baseball team, and he gave us 2 tickets for that World Series game. Now, we didn't know for sure it was going to work out the way it did, but the Phillies ended up winning the World Series that night, and it was an incredible celebration. So, and to be there with my dad, it was still one of the most magical things I've ever been. It's like one of the only times in my lifetime I remember embracing and hugging my dad. And it was like one of those crazy, cool moments. They never won the World Series at that point. And to be there with him for that one was really cool. So then you go forward to the 81 draft. So then the Phillies and the Royals were going to have the last 2 picks of the first round. So I kept hearing, the scouts were there, granted, playing baseball in Philly, it's cold that time of the year. It's not like California or Florida or Texas, where there's a zillion scouts and you're playing 12 months a year. Well, I'm playing 4 months a year. I'm playing football and basketball the other 4 months, each one of the sports. So, I'm hearing, the Braves, the Yankees, but the Phillies were going to draft me if I fall that far into the first round. So lo and behold, the first round I go through. I think the Phillies had the 30th pick or 28th pick, and the Royals had 27th. I guess it was only 28 teams. So that went by. So then I'm like, oh man. So then the very next, it was a compensation pick, because Darryl Porter was a catcher for the Cardinals, and he signed, he was with the Royals, signed with the Cardinals, so they got a compensation pick. That was when I was drafted. So it was funny, because Mike Gallego was drafted, our bench coach, just before me. I was drafted there, and then Mark Langston was drafted right after us. So it was us 3 together in the same draft. But, to get there, and then, I had a pretty successful rookie ball season, like you mentioned. The second year, I hurt my shoulder, and there was a little doubt at that point. I'm like, I never really had any injuries before. I broke a lot of bones. Trust me, guys, a lot of bones, like 8 bones in my career from different injuries and different ways of doing it. But so I got slowed down. I ended up going to called instructional league that fall. So I was a closer for the Royals at that point. I think they were just saying, well, let me try you at a bullpen. So they were basically just saying that. They were trying to build my arm strength up. So the next year, go to AA, and everything went well. It was a pretty good season, made an all-star team. Mark Langston was my all-star team teammate there too. And he was when Chattanooga with the Mariners, and I was with the Royals in Jacksonville. So then, lo and behold, somehow, some way, make that jump from AA to the big leagues. I didn't play in AAA. To make the playoffs that first year, because we ran into it. I will argue with anybody. I thought that 84, you guys are too young for this, but if you look back at that team, that 84 Detroit Tiger team may have been the best team I've ever seen. I mean, they were incredibly deep. Sparky Anderson was their manager. Kirk Gibson was on the team. You had Alan Trammell, Hall of Famer. You had Lance Parrish behind the plate. You had Lou Whitaker, who should be a Hall of Famer. Howard Johnson was a platoon player on that team before he goes over the Mets and has an incredible career. So they were really good. They had Jack Morris, who was a Hall of Famer. Willie Hernandez won the
World Series that year, right?
Yeah, they beat the Padres that year.
Right.
So that thing was so crazy. And I'm thinking, wow. But the Royals had been in the playoffs for a lot of years. They have been there in the mid 70s, the 80s, and losing that World Series. So I'm thinking, this is going to be something I'm going to be part of every year. So then when we make the playoffs, the next year we were picked to be in 5th place in our division, even though we made the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So we started off slow, like the Royals always did. And we were 7.5 games out at the All-Star break, kind of similar to what you saw with the Atlanta Braves this year. We open up a 5-game series in New York because we had a couple rainouts, and we just got crushed. So we lose all 5. Ooh. So we're thinking, maybe everyone was right. We're going to be a 5th place team. But I remember we had some veterans. George Brett and this guy, Hal McRae, was a great player. And Frank White was a 8-time Gold Glove winner at second base. They all said the same thing. Don't worry. We always get hot in August and September. And we got the Angels 8 games in September. And I'm looking as a baseball fan, I'm looking at all those guys from Reggie Jackson, Rod Carew, Bobby Grich, and all these guys on this Angels team. I'm thinking, there's no way we're going to beat them. But we end up winning 7 of 8, like I mentioned before. So we win by 1 game. We were 91 and 71. I think the Angels were 90 and 72. Then we fall behind right away, 3-1 against Toronto. And that team was just, they had their outfield was incredible. And their overall talent came back in that series, fell right away behind 3-1 to the Cardinals. And I remember after game 4, George Brett came in there in the locker room, and we were pretty down there because we already had that magical comeback. He goes, we got him exactly where he wanted. And he popped open a Budweiser and never said another word. So we're like going, and we're like, man, is he serious about this? And that's all he said. And then you could see it in his face. He's like, so we all go, maybe he's right. And then boom, we came back. We were the only team in, I don't know if all of sports history, but certainly baseball, to ever come back from 3-1 deficit in back-to-back series to win a World Series. So it was magical. It was a team that we're still friends. We went on golf trips for 15 years after we were done playing. This because it was
awesome.
This a group of brothers. It was like we were brothers for life, and the guys from that point forward, we just kind of stay connected all the time, because just like when I talked to Tim Salmon and Garrett Anderson, I saw Garrett yesterday too. That 2002 team, they'll walk, like we said. We always say that they're going to walk as friends forever, because there was something. They had no business winning that World Series that year. They weren't supposed to beat the Yankees. They weren't supposed to beat the Twins. They certainly weren't supposed to come back against the Giants like they did, but they did. And the big thing, everyone always said, there was something about their team and the players, and they never felt they were ever out of a game. And under any circumstances, they feel they were ever going to lose. You remember the Oakland A's that year won, 21 games, whatever it was, in a row.
Yeah.
And the Angels won as the wild card. So, it's incredible, because when teams play well together, you can have all the talent in the world. Sometimes that's not going to necessarily, it helps sometimes, but when you play well and you stay healthy, you have a chance to win. And when you have the right people leading you, Soch did a great job leading that team. Our manager, who's been gone for a long time, Dick Hauser, was incredible, because every day he would come in and goes, hey guys, we're going to win this. And if you had a bad game, he'd come in and say it was my fault. If the team had a good game, he would let everyone celebrate. So he absorbed the negative and the losses and allowed the players to enjoy the victories and all the successes.
We talked to Steve Physiok beginning of the season, and we brought you up, and because when you go to Kansas City, they always have a special place for you there. Obviously in the Royals Hall of Fame and everything, but they do value that team tremendously. Even though they've had success a few years ago. That 85 team was special to that community and to the state of Missouri. And Physiok always has the nicest things to say about you, or including in the interview. And he said, "Oh yeah, we love going out to Anaheim visiting because obviously him and Hud are there." But he goes, "Yeah, whenever Gooby's down, we always make it an opportunity to say hi to him and stuff like that." So you're revealed over there. And that '85 team, man. I mean, like again, like I started watching baseball in '86 with my pops, but he talked about you guys a lot. The '85 team. He's like, "Man, that team was so good." And that AstroTurf was crazy. I mean, how was it like to play on that hard AstroTurf compared to what they play on now?
Oh, I'll tell you, I have a piece of it in my office here. As a matter of fact, it's only like this thick. You think of, now the AstroTurf they have now, it's spongy where the guys come up. I tell you, like George Brett, Frank White, Willie Wilson, the way they walked. I don't know if you ever saw John Elway walk at the end of his career, where you could see his knees in there.
Yeah.
Their knees and their feet were just killing them, because that was like playing in a schoolyard. I mean, it was that hard.
Man.
Baseball would fly through there. And sometimes during the summer, it would be 160 plus degrees on the turf in those hot afternoon games. But the thing is, the guys would come in there, the infielders and outfielders, and put their feet in buckets of ice, and you could see the steam coming off their cleats.
Wow.
You didn't have the rubber cleats at all at that point, too. So you had the metal cleats. So it took its toll on a lot of guys. But we always used that field as our advantage because it was such a big field, and we had such good athletic outfielders that covered a lot of ground. Those other teams that came in, especially teams from like the AL East, from whether the Yankees or Red Sox, they're used to mashing the ball out in their ballparks. But in our yard, they played a lot deeper, so they didn't want to give up triples and inside the park home runs. So we used that, just like St. Louis did. We used that to our advantage. It was, Steve Balboni led our team with home runs that year in '85 with 36, and that stayed a club record till about 2016 when Mike Moustakas broke it, and then eventually Jorge Soler broke it. Then this past season, Salvador Perez broke it. But before that, it lasted for like 20 or 30 years. So this team we were always built around speed, defense, and pitching. And that's why I think with the Angels, with the direction they're going right now, and that's the conversation with Perry Manassian now, speed and especially the pitching staff. If you pitch well and catch the baseball, you seriously have a chance every game. Now, granted, some of those games are going to be low scoring. Some baseball fans don't love that as much. And there'll be games where you will score some runs. But if you have pitching and defense, you literally can win every game, no matter what the scenario is. Because that guy on the other side on the mound, if he's locked in that day, you're not going to win unless you outpitch him. So that's why I think we were able to win. I look at how many veterans were on the everyday lineup in that '85 team. But we had a pitching staff of myself, Saberhagen. I was 22 at that point. He was 21. Danny Jackson was 23. Our veterans of our staff was Bud Black, who only had like 3 or 4 years in the big leagues, and Charlie Liebrand, who had about 2 or 3. So we had a really, really young pitching staff, but we fed off each other. We competed against each other and the opponent. So every time like somebody had a good game, we were okay, I'll do better than him that next day. And it kept going like that. That's where I think you're going to see that with Suarez or Sandoval, these guys going and watching a couple of those veterans. Alex Cobb's a guy that I hope that the Angels bring back, because I think he could do that. He missed some time. I think he would have been even better for this team if he had been able to pitch more. But, boy, he did a great job when he was in there. So there's a lot of positives about that. I still love the fact is our game is, in my opinion, even though there's a CBA coming up here in December, there's a lot to love about this game of baseball. I mean, the parity in the game, 15 world champions in the last 21 years. That's phenomenal. I mean, what other sport can say that, where you have that many different champions? So I think everything's going the right direction. I think you're going to see, I'm maybe getting ahead of myself here with the CBA coming up. I think the universal DH, anybody, just because they saw 5 pitchers swing the bat in that one World Series game, no. The only pitcher I want to see swing the bat is Shohei Ohtani. That's the only guy I want to see swing the bat.
Well, I know you joke around. You say, "Hey, the pitch when the pitcher does get a hit, there's the best athlete on the field right there." But I know you do want to see the DH. I think a lot of fans are ready for that too. But yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, I remember in the '90s, it was always Yankees, Braves. Maybe sprinkle in the Indians. A team like the Marlins would come out of nowhere. But yeah, the parity is great for baseball. I think that's something that brings the young fans. One quick question I have real quick. I'm sorry, Fernando. I know you got one too. But as far as like how they say let the kids play now, would that have flown with you when you were a pitcher, or would you have preferred that when you were pitching?
Yeah, the funny thing is everyone thought, because they look back at the way I was fairly animated. I was like, you know, because everyone always sees me as a pretty chill dude. But that day when I pitched, it was a different beast. I was like I always joke around. I was an MMA fighter that day. And, you know, I could be the coolest dude, but that day I hated anybody who was wearing a different color than me. I mean,
Yeah,
I could have been my brother on the other team. If it was my brother, hey, if he wanted to charge them out, we were going. But I have no problem with anybody enjoying themselves, because if you looked at any highlights, I was a guy that I stared at hitters. I
Yeah.
fist pumped when I got a big out. I was very animated going off the field into the dugout. I mean, I just love competing. So my emotions at time. That's why I literally never watched any video of any games I ever pitched, because I knew that I'd be embarrassed by myself by some of the things I did. And I was like, you know what? I can't watch it, because because every once in a while now, when, like you mentioned, going back to KC or even other highlights, everyone goes, man, you were staring down this guy, or you were like shooing him back to the dugout, or this and that. And guys like, even you mentioned HUD. I remember a couple times when I was backing up third base and he was in the dugout, he was saying something. He said, hey, you flipped me the bird. I'm like, man, I don't remember doing half this stuff, but but I love it. I love when a guy, if he hits a ball and bat flips it, because you know what? Hitting in baseball is incredibly hard to do.
Oh yeah.
Or if you need a big strikeout, you see, what's it, Gratterall for the Dodgers, doing all the stuff he does, going off the mound. I'm like, dude, I love that. I mean, you're doing something that you love. And if you can get somebody out, I mean, I don't want you to embarrass your opponent, because that's not right. But if you're showing emotion, I'm all for it. Because everyone's asking me, like, there's no way you'd be drilling these hitters if they did. I go, no, I wouldn't. First of all, it was my fault that I gave up that home run. So
Yeah.
I'll be punching myself in the face. But my first thing I would say is, when I ever get a chance to get him out, trust me, I will fist pump him all the way back to the dugout. So I wanted that. I mean, I wanted that guy on the other side to dislike me with a passion. And I was fine with that, because I didn't like him either. I didn't like him, but once those guys, those opponents came to the Royals and put on the same uniform as mine, they go, wow, you're way different than I thought you were. I go, what do you mean by that? He goes, you were a complete, what? And I faced you. And I'm like, that's what you're supposed to be, right? That's what I was always taught from. Dennis Leonard was one of my idols growing up. I mean, with the Royals, he was a pitcher. And Bruce Keeson was one of my pitching coaches, who was played with the Angels too in his career. He goes, you know what? That's what you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to make friends on the field, make friends after the game. That's what all it is. I mean, you're friends and you're fine after the game, but when you're in there, people are coming to the ballpark paying good money, or watching the game on TV or listening to the radio. They want the very best of you, with your focus of trying to win, and whatever it takes to win the game. Whether you dive for a bunt, as a pitcher, or you make a great pitch to get a strikeout, or you back up home instead of pouting if you give up a hit, you might save a run, you might save an error for one of your teammates. All those things come into play, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, long story short, I think it's great when people show their emotion.
Yeah, there was a game, and I don't know if you saw it in Miami, where the player hit a home run off the Nationals pitcher, and he did like a shimmy. And so then the next time the pitcher came up to face the batter, he struck him out, and as he walked off, he did the same shimmy. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
They didn't fight or nothing. They just were like, okay, respect,
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, I never had a problem. And believe me, I didn't give up a lot of home runs. I was more of a sinker ball pitcher. So when I gave up a home run, it was a long way, and no doubter. And if they took a while to go around the bases, you know what? I made a mistake. But I guarantee you, when I got you out the next time, I will show you the same kind of emotion you showed me too. So it was fun. It was all, it was all battle every day. I mean, like I say, I'm not trying to make friends from the other team until after the game, where we can hang out maybe and have a beer or get a bite to eat or something like that. But when we're playing, not my friend.
Gotcha.
So earlier you had talked about Bo Jackson, the freakish athlete he was. What's maybe one example that you can give us listeners and our listeners to the kind of athlete that he truly was?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good. There were so many times. Whether it was, I remember his first home run was off of Mike Moore, went 475 feet, which I know was way further than that. But I'm pitching the game in Fenway Park, which was still one of my favorite ballparks to either pitch in or go to as a fan now, or as a broadcaster. So I'm on the mound. There's a man on, I think it might have been first and second. He's playing left field at Fenway with the Green Monster. And I gave up I don't know, I can't remember what was hitting. It was a rocket to left center field. You'll see these highlights. I mean, that's one of those ones they always show where he goes hit it. I'm like, God, I'm already dropped my head. I'm running towards, I didn't know whether to back up third base or home because one run's going to score more than likely. Maybe the guy comes all around to first base. So I'm kind of hovering in between third and home, and I'll adjust depending on where the throw was. And all of a sudden, just out of the corner of my eye, I look up and I see Bo literally diving in the air. And I'm thinking, and he's like, most people dive and they hit the ground quickly. Like he's going forever. And he catches this ball in left center field on a complete, like there's some guys in the outfield, trust me, they time their dives really well. It makes it look good. But this was a flat out flying through the air like Superman. And third base coach, I'm running, I look at him, he's looking at me like, he just goes, I have no idea how that happened. And everyone's looking around like, what in the world has happened? And he dives and catches this ball, and everyone's just kind of standing there on the bases running like, what? And, it's like, and then he gets up, pops up, throws it quickly into second base. And I'm thinking, I'm going from having 2 earned runs to now I'm probably going to get out of the inning. And I was like, I'm thinking, there's no way I'm telling you this, guys, no human being ever catches that ball. There's some great ones in the outfield that can run. Jimmy Edmonds played in center field against the Royals. When I was with the Angels in '97, over the shoulder play was the greatest play I ever saw as a fan and as a team. But that play, being there with Bo, making that play, diving. I mean, him running up the wall in Baltimore, we've seen that highlight a lot. The throw where he got Harold Reynolds at home plate and up in Seattle at Kingdome. All those things, incredible. His first at bat, it's going against my idol, Steve Carlton. He's with Cleveland at the point. Hits a home run. To this day, Bo will say it was fair. I mean, he said he hit it so far, the foul pole, it went over. He felt it went over it, but it went so far out that the umpire just thought it was foul. But if he had replay, he probably would have been able to see it was a fair ball. So then he hits a ground ball to the second baseman and he beats it out. That's a right-handed batter hitting a ground ball to second base, and he beats it out for his first hit. So I'm like, wow, this dude ain't real. He's just not real at all. So, and like going back to watching those Raider games where like Bob Golick was a defensive lineman for the Raider teams, but he came over and he goes, one day, I'm just during the game, these guys are all like getting beat up and stuff. He goes, dude, this dude's not real. I mean, he's flying by people at that size that you would think a wide receiver is going to be running that fast, but he was fast, but he was incredibly strong. So just a great dude. I mean, we had so many good conversations. We still keep in touch, and I kept trying to get him to meet Shohei this year because I thought that would be my ultimate goal, to have 2 of the biggest freaks of nature together, with Shohei Ohtani and Bo Jackson, but it didn't work out. Maybe next year where everything will be a little more loose in the country. So that would be pretty cool to see that happen.
Man, the world would not be ready for that. Could you imagine? King Kong, I mean, Godzilla, really.
Yeah. Exactly.
So speaking of unreal, let's talk about your 1988 season. So you finished 3rd in the Cy Young voting that year. 20-8, 4 shutouts, 269 innings, and 2/3, I believe, and then a 2.7 ERA. What was working for you that season? Like when you're on a roll like that, like is it just the confidence? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is you go back to the year before, I was 13-18. So you think of 18 losses, that's a horrible season. But I remember talking to, say, Burt Blyleven or even Jim Palmer. He goes, man, you were in the game for 31 decisions. That's a lot. That means your manager has a lot of respect for you. So there were some things I did well that year, but there was things I did wrong. And I had 120 walks or something crazy. I did have 250 innings pitched. But I remember we changed our pitching coach, and it was my new pitching coach. His name was Frank Funk. And the first day of spring training that year in '88, he comes up, he goes, can you do me a favor? And I'm like, yeah, because I had to go to arbitration. So I'm fighting with a GM, and who's John Shearholtz, who's in the Hall of Fame now. He went to the Braves after us, because it's arbitration, not a fun process. So he goes, I need you to try something. I need you to try easy. So I looked at him, I go, Frank, that's not my DNA, man. Where I grew up, what I had to deal with all my life, 17 dudes hanging out in the schoolyard every day, all kinds of crazy stuff. I go, I can't do that. I just don't have it. And he goes, trust me, just do this. Try easy. I go, okay, what does that mean? He goes, instead of trying to throw the ball through the catcher's mitt, just kind of don't go, instead of 100% or 110%, try 90%. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So then the spring training game, my first game out there, he's looking at me. I'm looking at him from the mound in the dugout. He goes, he's giving me this like, go on, let's give it a shot. So I threw the first pitch, like say 95%. And it was right down the middle of the plate, and home plate umpire called it a ball. And right away, my mind's like, I'm like, I almost got thrown out of the game by the umpire. So he runs out. He's trying to bring
in a spring training game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the guy's name was Joe Brinkman, too, was an umpire for a lot of years. And so he comes out, and I'm like, Joe, where that ball's right down the middle. He goes, he's screaming at me. And Frank Funk, our pitcher coach, goes, that was a pretty good pitch, wasn't it, Joe? He goes, you know what? Guys, I did miss it. And from this point forward, you're going to be my favorite pitcher. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So he goes back to behind the plate. So I throw the next pitch. It was a borderline pitch. Probably could have been a ball. Calls it a strike. So then all of a sudden, like, instead of being like this crazed, like MMA fighter, like I always was, and all of a sudden I'm like, I figured out the art of pitching. So then I started hitting both sides of the plate. And then that year, I'm going out and going 9 innings and completing the game, going 92 pitches instead of having 110 pitches in 4 innings, trying to throw the ball as hard as I can. And then it kind of snowballed where I gained a lot of confidence. So then later on in the year, I go into because our locker room in Kansas City was very close to the home plate. I mean, the umpire's locker room. So I went in there, and lo and behold, Joe Brinkman had a picture of one of my baseball cards in his locker. I kid you not. And from that point forward, we became really good friends. So it was like one of those moments where I learned to relax. And it was so hard for me to do that because all my life I was like, nobody was going to give me a chance. I never thought I would ever make the big leagues. You know, everyone would say, you're never going to be able to make it because you come from a cold climate. You don't play a whole lot. These guys from California and blah, 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 blah. All these guys are better than you. I'm like, you know, you just kind of fight this. So to get there, to finally be able to take that deep breath. That's why if you ever hear me in the broadcast, the most important thing when a pitcher's making a debut is take a deep breath and relax. And because when you're tense, you guys will notice, even when you're doing your shows, when you're tense, man, you're not talking well and everything else. If you just relax your shoulders and take a deep breath, boy, everything's so much easier to do. So it was one of those moments where I didn't do it necessarily on, try to do it, but it allowed me to figure out that process. And from that point forward, I was able to become the pitcher I always envisioned myself being. Then a couple injuries here and there kind of derailed that progression, but I'll never regret anything I did in my career because every day I went there with the preparation and just the will to go out there and succeed. And then you're seeing a lot of guys talk about how difficult it is on the mental aspect in the game right now. I haven't told this story a lot, but just a few people, like literally every game before I would pitch, I'm walking down to the bullpen. I'm telling myself, I can't do this. I can't pitch. I can't do this. I feel like my heart is going to explode. My chest is tight. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And then as soon as the gate opens up to the bullpen, boy, all of a sudden I was like, I was a gladiator and the lions and everything else was charging me and boom, I'm flying. But from that moment, from walking to the clubhouse, to the dugout, to the bullpen, I wanted to quit every game. It was weird. Every game, that 4 days in between my workout routines, I gave myself the best opportunity physically to be ready. But then as soon as I walked out there, I was like, God, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And then the gates open, whether it's at home or on the road, and I was ready to go. But it was just that mental part of it where you were just the constant battle. It's like, I don't know if you ever, I always joke around for the love of the game, that whole stuff about clear the mechanism with Kevin Costner saying, everyone goes, oh, I don't know if I love that movie. I said, man, if you're a pitcher, it's so true because there's so many variables come into your mind during the course before every game, every pitch. My best games were the games where I didn't think. Because there's games where I'm rolling. I'm like, all right, I'm in the 5th inning. Okay, if I get through the 6th inning, 7th inning, I've got the right part of the order, I'm going to be good. I looked ahead and boom, that 6th inning, I got blasted. So, the whole thing of just trying to stay on that safe, even keel. This when I ever talked to any of the players, I really had a pretty good relationship with Garrett Richards. It was pretty core conversation. I still have lots of conversations with him and Kevin Jepson about little things here and there. That part of the thing is that's why I say getting that ace or the 2 veteran pitchers that are going to help those other guys out, because when the game gets going, I think Patrick Sandoval did a great job this year. We mentioned a bunch of times, he started to slow the game down where he needs to be, because most times when you're competitive, you get going even faster and it comes down, you're not breathing again. Everything's tightened up. because you're not allowing your everything to be able to relax to go out there and perform at your highest level.
Did you carry on a lot of these things that you learned from your pitching coach and in your career to the players at Chaminade, and then talking to some of the young Angel pitchers this year?
Yeah, I loved when I was able to. I was the head coach at Chaminade for I think it was about 4 years, and still until this pandemic, where I was still volunteering and going over there, and like just try to explain those kind of stories. And I remember like certain pitching coaches like Bruce Keeson would go out and before you go, hey man, what are you up to tonight after the game? This is when like the crazy moment. Say I'm facing like Don Mattingly at the plate or whatever. He goes, I go, what do you mean? I'm like, hey man, let's get a beer after the game, or let's go out and have a good time after the game, grab a bite to eat. And I'm like, all right. So then all of a sudden, like, oh, and then he goes, okay, your front shoulder's moving a little bit too quick. Let's go ahead and focus and use all your pitches. So just to get you, we always say, I even said to my kids at Chaminade, to get out of that freak zone where your mind is like freaking out on you. Just get out of there for a while, and then you're able to get the message you need to be able to get across to your young pitchers or some of the guys on the Angels. So because when everything's going along, because you're already thinking, especially nowadays when you're processing all this information you're getting, and it's all good information, but all these numbers, and all these times, what's he do on 3-1 count? What's he looking for 3-1 count? Your mind is going so fast, you're not allowing yourself to be physical on the mound. So for a pitching coach to go out and have a quick conversation, or anybody have a quick conversation to get you out of that freak mode, to get back into, okay, now you relax. Okay, this is what you got to do. That's how you get back in there as quick as possible, and you have a better chance of being successful.
Okay.
All right, Gooby, last few questions I got for you.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through your desire to be a broadcaster, and how nervous do you remember being for your first call? Is it just as nerve-wracking as, pitching, but maybe not?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, here, I'll put it towards you in almost a baseball term. I remember Bud Black was a teammate of mine in Kansas City, and he said, the minute you're not nervous about going out there and performing is the minute you got to retire. So, all right. So on the broadcasting side, from that first game, I was nervous till the last game of the season. I was nervous going into the game. So that tells me that I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. So the nerves are always going to be there. If they're not, then you should go home. Then you're just kind of mailing it in. Now, on the broadcasting side, it's crazy how this really all started for me, because here I am, I'm done playing. I'm thinking, all right, I started coaching a travel ball team, eventually started coaching over there at Chaminade. And I'm in Vegas because I go there with my family and my in-laws and some friends every year for the Super Bowl. So I'm in Vegas. I get a call from ESPN. They go, hey, we want you to come in and do an audition for the Baseball Tonight show. I go, yeah, sure, I'll do that. They go, well, we need you to come in now. I'm like, man, I'm here with my family and my friends. I'll come in on Monday. They go, no, we need you to come now. So I guess they were testing me, whatever. And that was like the Saturday we were out there. And I'm like, I'll be there Monday. They go, no, that's okay. We'll pass. So I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking, okay, that's never going to happen. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. So then maybe about a month later, Fox Sports Net calls me and they say, hey, you willing to come in and do an audition we're going to start doing a show called Baseball Today. It was a live show in 4 different regions. I was doing it with Steve Saxon. Ron Darling got to start. We both got our start at the same time. And so I go in there and do an audition. No idea what I'm even supposed to. They didn't even give me any idea what we're doing. All I saw was 4 cameras all around. And I'm thinking, I see one with a red light. So I'm thinking, you know what? Nobody told me to do that. But I'm thinking, all right, that means that one's on me. So I'm looking there and dressing the camera as if it's my friend or a teammate. So then I was able to do this audition. They go, okay, we'll call you. I'm like, oh, I remember the old thing. Hey, we'll call you. I'm thinking there's no way they're going to call me. So then at night they go, hey, you're hired. Can you be here tomorrow? I'm like, whoa. So then it kind of snowballed into that. I was doing a radio show over at 570. It was called the Southern California Baseball Report. And I did that on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, where there was times I was producing I was getting interviews set up. I did an interview, with so many different, I even had Larry King on there we talked for like 30 minutes. He was a big, huge baseball fan. And, Chris Berman, I had on there, Jim Palmer, a bunch of really cool people just that I knew, and I tried to call them and I set them all up. We did that. And then I'm sitting there and I started doing pre and post for the Angels and the Dodgers way back about 2004, I guess it was. And, we're doing it from Staples Center because they used to have a studio right down there. That's where the Fox
Right.
Sports was.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they were having their holiday party, and Tom Fuhr was the executive producer for Fox Sports at that point, and this guy named Steve Simpson was the president of the company. And they go, "Hey, what about you and Jose Mota doing games?" Like, I mean, doing games. You go, Jose is going to do about 50 games and as play-by-play, and then you're going to do, those games with him as a color analyst. Any desire to do that? I'm like, yeah. Ready to do that. And then lo and behold, it snowballed into where I'm at right now. This will be my 16th year coming up, which is crazy to think that, I played a very minimal amount of time with the Angels. That's one of my biggest regrets, is not being more successful on the field for the Angels, because I felt that everything was going to be going in the right direction. I got hurt in spring training, my shoulder, and it was done. And but the weird thing is that I always believe there's always something meant to be. I mean, when I was traded to the Angels for Chili Davis, I had to approve the trade. And if I don't, I'm not here right now. So there was something in my, the Angels wanted me. The Royals at that point, they were going in a different direction too. So I said, did we approve the trade? I said, yeah, I'd love to. My daughter got ready to go to kindergarten, my oldest one. That could be home at this point. California was my home since about 86 at that point. So I'm like, this would be a great opportunity for me. Like I said, I never, my biggest regret is not pitching better for the Angels. But if I hadn't accepted that trade, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. So it worked out great. I mean, I love what I'm doing. Being around the guys all the time, still feeling part of that camaraderie as far as a player and as an athlete, because you're there with them, and they're still asking me questions, and I'm still asking them questions. Have fun with that Gooby Tuesday stuff. We're having little fun stuff here and there, and hopefully we'll have to go back. Exactly. We'll have to get back and be able to do that a little bit more now that we'll be a little more open and free to be able to do that. Because I love the personalities, because there's baseball players, because you play every day, it's tough to get their personalities out, because it's not like basketball or because they play 3-4 times a week. So there's some downtime. Football, once a week. Baseball is an everyday grind. So these guys, it's hard to ask for their time when they barely have enough for their own self and their own family. So to be able to get their personalities out and be able to do those things, it's been really something I really never thought I was ever going to be doing this. I grew up playing stickball, listening to Harry Callis and a guy named Richie Ashburn with the Phillies every day, playing stickball, listening to those guys. And that's how I realized how important we are as broadcasters to the fan base, because you live the game through them. I mean, Trout is the guy, Ohtani's the guy, but when you look back, if you look even with the Dodgers, it's Vin Scully and everybody else has played. So, and like for me, Harry Callis was it. I mean, Steve Carl and Mike Schmidt, all those great players, but Harry Callis, he did a game. We came in our booth when Rory Marcus was doing the play-by-play with me, and I couldn't even talk. He was doing an inning with me, and Rory Marcus, who's one of the all-time great human beings, I miss him dearly every day.
Absolutely.
He's looking at me just laughing and going, dude, you're a child right now. I go, yes. I mean, this is Harry Callis. He's sitting right next to me. He goes, hey, Mark, how you doing? And I'm like, I remember you at William Penn Charter High School. I'm like, oh my God, Harry Callis is sitting right next to me. It's like when I messed around with Vince Scully, because he would come over in our booth. I go over to his booth. We're joking around all the time. And it was like, wow, these are like people that you feel are part of your family. So when I have fans go like, oh man, I love listening to you, or love being, watching the games, it feels like we're all family. Because that's, for me, even after the game, that last game of the season, walking into the post-game show and I'm seeing the fans they're still smiling. Like, I go, man, I feel so bad. I want this team to win, because these fans are coming out every day. They're supporting this club. They're supporting the players. I'm like, man, I want this team to win. I want them to, have those thunder sticks going like I had in 2002. I want to see that, feel that energy, because it's there. It's there, but you just got to get to that next level. So I think being part of that family, and I think being a broadcaster makes you feel part of the family. I know it's a long answer to your question, but for me, it's being part of the family that's so important.
Yeah, I have one more comment and one more question, real quick. We interviewed Darren and Rich this year,
Mm-hmm.
and they both had nothing but nice things to say about you and how you make things so comfortable because they were nervous coming into their situation,
Mm-hmm.
and you just made things so comfortable for them. And they said, if you ever say hi to Gooby, tell him we really appreciate, what he did for us and the things they learned from you. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like they were trying to emulate or trying to say that, hey, or how the things you've learned from broadcasters that you brought up, like Scully and others, you've passed that down to others and they've appreciated that. And going to what the fans were saying, us included, we see you there at the post game or whatever pregame, and you're as nice as can be. You fist bump all the fans, and I think fans remember that. Like, oh man, we met Mark. He's just as nice in person as he is on television. So you have that relationship. We just wanted to let you know with Angel fans where you're adored. You are family, like you brought up.
Thanks for that, because I learned that from my dad right away. I remember like my first year, like he came out to our game, my first start, and it was freezing, and there was a bunch of fans waiting by my car. At that point, you parked right with everybody else. There's no area where the players parked and fans parked. So I'm parked next to everybody, and people ask for autographs. So I'm signing. My dad looked at me, goes, "Son, sign every single one you and every single person you ever see. Don't just sign it, but say something nice to them, because you know what? At some point, there'll come a time where nobody's who you are. Nobody's going to ask you for your autograph." So I'm like, that it kind of set in. I'm like, you know what? And I always believe, and this big theory I have 3 older brothers. He goes, and we all live by the same thing. We always joke about this. Even to this day, my dad said, it takes no effort to be a good person, but it takes a lot of effort to be a bad person. And then he goes, that's the only thing I'm ever going to teach you in life. It takes no effort to be a good human being, but it takes a lot of effort to be a bad person. So you sit there, you go, it's true, because to be a bad person, you got to try to be a bad person. To be a good person, no effort. I mean, it's there in you. So when somebody comes over and, wants me to sign something, I'm like, I'll run over there, and like my director, stage director is going, get over here, we're on in 10 seconds. Like, hey, I got 9 seconds more. I'm cool. Run back in there. I mean, part of it is being relaxed. And this, one thing I did, finally realize, hey, and just watching other people's, whether they're pregame, postgame for other sports, people like announcers that have a good time. I mean, you can spew out all the numbers and it's fine, and I'll do that. But when you generally have a good time, I think of us all having a conversation, having a bite to eat, and having a cold one every game I do. That's the guy. Go back to Scott Ackerman. He goes, think of everyone sitting there at your house, watching a game, having a bite to eat and having a cold one, and that's how you do a game. It's a conversation, having fun. Because when you break down all the numbers and all the crazy stuff, you can lose people. And I myself included, when I'm watching a game, I want to laugh. I want to have this, like, man, like, what's going to happen? All these things. I want to have a good time every day. Because if you're gonna invest 3.5 hours in a game, I want you to have something to remember that game by. Whether we lost 10-0, something was probably happening during the course of the game was pretty cool. Something happened. Not everything, obviously, when you lose 10-0, but something was cool that I'm not gonna be miserable about it, because you know what? It's a game. There's more difficult things, obviously, in life. So sports are the thing for me. It's a way for us all to have a good time.
Okay. And I have one more question, unless you want to go first, Fernando, or
Yeah, I'll let you ask yours and I'll ask mine after.
okay. Checklist for you, not players specifically, but if you're Perry Manassian right now, what's your top 3 moves here in the off season? Like what positions you go for first? And last question to go along with that: can we get you at some point this year to wear a mullet for like a Gooby Tuesday, just for the broadcast? Can we see you in a mullet?
Yeah.
I think Angel fans need to see that.
Dude, I don't know if you saw, like, on one of my Twitter things, I went out and dressed up for Halloween as almost like a Brett Michaels like look to me this time.
Oh, okay.
Might have to check that one out. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, no, that we did that one too. That was Hall and Oaks we did, but this one was a little bit more hard rock. My wife was Joan Jett, and I was like basically a rock and roller, like an '80s hair band type guy. So yeah, I did that one for sure. Yeah, you know what? I always have a blast doing that. So what was the first part? I'm lost in my mind
Oh,
when I
sorry.
rock and roll.
No, because I just remember all your baseball cards. I have, you always have the mullet going, man. Like the business in the front, party in the back, man.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy though. We never call it a mullet. I just, it's one of those things where John Kruk and I, we still text back and forth. He goes, because he had that hair going too, and
Yeah, yeah.
Johnson and stuff. Like, we never set out to have that look going on. You see a lot of the guys now with the long hair going. So I mean, which is pretty cool to see that with Packy Norton and all those guys. He would always say, "Dude, you got to grow the hair back, man." I said, "No, back. I take it there where you are now anymore." But back in the day, I was like that too.
It was a good look. Oh, just a question. If you were Perry Manassian, your checklist, yeah.
I was trying to get out of that, but that's why.
Oh.
No, but pitching, starting pitching has to be. I'm not only going one. I'm saying two.
Okay.
Starting pitcher, impact starting pitchers. I did like what I saw towards the end of the season with the bullpen. I still think there's some arms needed down there. I think you can do that a little easier because bullpen guys are such a different breed because they could be unbelievable one year. The next year, it's almost like a field goal kicker in the NFL. There's times where you miss one field goal, then all of a sudden you're just never getting a good role. So that way, I think you can put together some good arms, maybe guys that have been let go by other teams or just bringing in somebody, or there's some guys in the minor leagues. I mean, I love Chris Rodriguez. I was so bummed to hear that he's not going to be available, at least for most of the season. I loved him, but I wouldn't shy away from one of the shortstops either, by the way.
Okay.
I know everyone's going to get pitching, and I think that's the thing they're going to do first and foremost. I'm not so sure if Kurt Suzuki's coming back. I love being around him. It was great to see him come home. Went to Cal State Fullerton, lives in right there in Fullerton area. So it was great to see him do that. If he's back, fine. If not, you have to think about who could help out with Max Stassi behind the plate. But pitching, I'm totally fine with the outfield. I'm totally fine with, Brandon Marsh. I love what he did. Trouty, Joe Adell, and Justin Upton in that mix. So I think you're fine there. Fletch, I still don't understand how he didn't win a Gold Glove, but don't get me started on that one. I'm still chapped about that. And Walshy, he's phenomenal. Rendon, he's going to come back, and he's an unbelievably good player. I mean, we haven't seen that yet in an Angel uniform the year before, obviously, with the pandemic, only 60 games. He got hot there in the end. Just knowing him and seeing him in spring training that year, and when he first came around, the dude is legit. Dude's legit. I mean, he's just going to be healthy, and I think. But starting pitching has to be done. And I'm hearing a lot of names right out there now, and I'm kind of excited about it. Robbie Ray, guys like that. There's always some kind of connection with Max Scherzer. I know he did a great job with the Dodgers, but he was the guy the Angels were looking at before he went over to the Dodgers. There's some names out there. Justin Verlander, he's got a house in SoCal. You just don't know. I mean, they're going to do something. Rodriguez from the Red Sox. Rodon. You just want to make sure what you do going forward is you got to make sure when you bring in guys, you want them healthy. You need to have that window open of Trout, Rendon, and Ohtani doing what they're doing for the next 2, 3, 4 years. And if you supplement around with some good arms around them, it's got a chance to be in special. I know people go, what do you think? Can this team compete? There's a couple words I can't stand going into spring training. They always want our club to be competitive. I hated that. My mind is, if I'm not in the playoffs, then it's a lost season. I don't want to be competitive. I want to be a playoff team, and that's what Joe told me recently, Madden, and that's the feeling everyone around. No more, hey, we want to be competitive. They want to be in the playoffs, and that's the bottom line.
So maybe I should have gone before Todd, because my question was going to be, so let's assume you're Perry Manassian, or let's just assume, heck, you're the general manager. What is your sales pitch to any free agent who's interested in coming to Anaheim?
Well, the thing is, and I saw this recently too, Perry said this best, and I would say it all the time, Southern California weather, man. You're to have no rain delays. Believe me, as a player and a broadcaster, when you go into certain cities during the summer, you're gonna have rain delays, rainouts, blah blah blah. California, Southern California, the weather's perfect. The fans are unbelievably good. They come in droves, 3 billion plus on a normal year. You get a chance to play with Mike Trout. That's all I would say. I think Trouty should almost be like LeBron James of the Lakers and say, listen, if you want, I need you on my team. And now you have Shohei Ohtani to be able to do the same thing. You have two of the most incredibly marketable and insane players on the same team. If I'm Perry Manassi, I go, hey, Mike Trout's on the line here, and here's Shohei Ohtani. We're on Zoom or FaceTime. Hey, such and such, you want to play here? And Trouty and Shohei go, we need you. Boom, done deal. And if those guys were, if I was a player and they were on there saying, hey, Mark, I want you to join our team. I'm like, wait a minute. If you could fax me there, I know there's no more faxing anymore. But if you could fax me over there, I'll be right there now. Exactly. My kids say that to me all the time. I said, I still have a fax machine that doesn't, I don't even know if it works anymore, but if there's a way to fax me over there to play for the Angels, I'm there at this moment. So the weather, the fans, how many they come out in droves. You have a great owner that's willing to spend any money you want in Artie Moreno, and you have Trout, Ohtani. Boom. And you have a guy that has no pulse in Anthony Rendon. He's the most calm, chill dude I've ever been around. And then you have some young, talented outfielders in Brandon Marsh to bring that energy. You need that energy. Veteran teams are great, but you need those guys. I mean, you look at Eddie Rosario, what he did for the Braves, the energy he brought to those guys. I mean, granted, he wasn't a young kid. He was still fairly young, but I mean, you need energy guys. Cole Calhoun was that guy when he was with the Angels. I mean, I loved him doing the things he was doing. So you need energy guys, and Joe Adell and Brandon Marsh bring that. So they're going to bring everyone. Trouty really never got a chance to play with all those guys, especially at the level they were playing with now.
Yeah.
Trouty played with Joe Adell last year. That was a learning process. He's going to get a chance to play with those guys now that they've actually figured out how to be good. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see that. Fletch is going to be better. Fletch wore down last year because bottom line is he was like one of the only guys between him and Ohtani and Walshy, and they're swinging the bat. Bottom line. I mean, Phil Gosselin did great, and Stas did great, and Mayfield, they all did really, really good. But they're guys that are going to play you 2-3 days a week and really help you out that way instead of having to play 7 days a week. So I'm always going to be optimistic. You guys know that from my broadcast. I'm always going to be a half full guy because I choose to live my life that way. There's something I'm feeling right now. Even I'm on social media reading every day. I'm feeling something pretty cool about what's going to happen, this winter week. Hopefully we get the CBA going. That's going to be the first thing we got to take care of, but I think that'll get done. But I think there's going to be some magical stuff. Like I said, this division is turning into a division now where all 5 teams think they can win now. And for me, a division that has the 2 best players in the world on the same team deserves to be in the postseason because you never know what they're going to do. I mean, Trouty has only had that one series against Kansas City. That was it. That's it. So you imagine how Shohei Ohtani, the way he pitched there in the last month, 2 months, really after the All-Star break. And still, I mean, then he'll have people around him. He's such a competitive, team-oriented guy. He was trying to win every game swinging the bat. It's hard to do that because if I'm pitching against him, I'm never giving anything close to the plate.
Yeah.
So he did an amazing thing. But you can imagine how good it's going to be to have guys around him now.
Yeah, that are actually healthy because, I mean, geez, I think that was his biggest issue this year. But imagine the numbers he could have put up. And my thing, me and Fernando have been talking a lot, too. If they get to the postseason, you saw the media coverage that Ohtani got in the All-Star game. Imagine them in the postseason.
Yeah. I mean, and both of them, if you look at Trouty, what he did in a bunch of All-Star games, I mean, he's won a couple MVPs in the All-Star game. I mean, grant's a different thing, but it's still, trust me, the All-Star games as a player, there's a huge stress on you because nobody really remembers when you do something pretty good. It's when you do something bad they remember. So there's a lot of pressure on those things. And Trouty was always phenomenal on that because I can imagine, and I think Shohei, if you look at how, when he first made it to the major leagues and was with the Angels in 2018, how bad he was in spring training, but as soon as those bright lights came on, he wins the Rookie of the Year. And this year he's going to win the MVP. So those guys, and Rendon, we know how good he is. Just ask Kershaw there in that playoff game when he hit that home run and got that. So he's phenomenal. I think, you know what, but I'm not going to be. This is the first year I'm going to go, hey, I'm happy with what we got on the mound right now. No, there has to be some stuff done. There has to be some impact arms put in there with the guys they have coming. Yeah, there's a lot to be optimistic about. So I think Perry Manassian, I've known Perry since he was a kid because he was a bat boy for the Rangers organization when I was down there and played there. And I knew his dad very well. He was a visiting clubhouse attendant for a number of years before the home side. He's got it in him to win. I mean, he's been part of a winning team. Obviously, he's got some still connection, feel good about what he saw with his friends down there in Atlanta. And he put together a pretty darn good team up there in Toronto too. So it's there. He knows scouting, he knows analytics. So now you put that all together and make the right moves. He's drafted all those pitchers.
Yeah.
Everyone goes, man, I'll pitch it. But I saw something today. Kansas City, from the 2018 draft, 5 pitchers from that draft started games for him this year. 5. So
Wow.
5 pitchers from that draft. So the Angels drafted 20, 22 pitchers this year. And you know what? You never know. May have the same success. That's only a couple years for all those Royals pitchers up there in the major leagues. That's a pretty amazing. 5 guys who started games for you from the 2018 draft for the Royals because they felt the same way. The only way to be successful is to draft pitching because you can always trade them or you can have them in the big leagues. So that's your best way. That's your biggest chip come trade deadline because nobody's always looking for necessarily position players. To get to that next level, you need arms, and that's what the Angels did this offseason. I mean, during the draft, that's what you see in a couple of the guys they already signed as far as free agents, minor league free agents and stuff. So there's some really positive things going forward, but I really anticipate. I think it's going to get pretty crazy quick. I wouldn't be surprised if some big splashes are made within a week or so. To be honest with you, I think it could.
And one thing I'll say to piggyback off what you said before we start closing here is that for the first time in a long time, we're really starting to see a lot of homegrown guys. And that's how cultures are built.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this isn't the baseball that, I grew up watching where, the Yankees, the evil empire, they were buying all this talent. Now, a lot of these successful teams, like you said, we've had a lot of different champions over the last 15 years. A lot of those teams were homegrown teams. We have the Marshes, we have the Adeles, Walsh, Fletcher, in the rotation, the bullpen. A lot of these guys were born here, built here. You know what I mean? So they take pride in being Angels because, hey, I'm not a guy who signed as a free agent. I was, I grew up in the system. Mm-hmm. So, I think that stuff makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, you can teach that culture from rookie ball to A ball, double A, triple A. Mike Scioscia was really good at that. I mean, if you looked at minor league guys that came up to the major leagues during his very successful stretch he was at the helm with the Angels, they all played the Angels way. They were all going first to third. They were all capable of stealing a base. They were all capable of getting 4, 5, 6 outs out of the bullpen. All those things, the way they played the game was taught to them at that level in the minor leagues. And I know Perry's my conversations with him, Manassian, that's the player development he wants again for this organization where that culture is being brought and taught all the way from the very first day you come into the minor leagues to up to AAA to major league level. And when you do that, it's an easier transition than you go, you're constantly bringing people from different organizations where they have their own philosophy. So there's a learning process that could cost you 4 or 5 games. Well, those 4 or 5 games could be a difference between making the postseason or not. So you look at, teams, you look at even the Braves, they might not make the playoffs if they didn't have the right people there, Freddie Freeman's to supplement all these other, Albies great player too. But they came from the systems, but then you bring in guys like Jock Peterson, and all those guys are good add-ons because they learn and watch the guys that came through the system to play the Braves way. So that's why they, I'm still, everyone's shocked that they won. I'm surprised they did too, but the way they were playing, I was not surprised. They were able to beat, the 2 best teams in the playoffs. They beat the Dodgers and they beat the Astros, the 2 best teams I felt in the game. They beat them both, which is not easy to do.
And the Brewers with that great rotation.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I was actually coming into the postseason, I was picking the Brewers really, and I had the Astros. I did feel the Astros were pretty strong. But McCullers going down hurt them a little bit. But I love the Brewers rotation, but they couldn't score any runs. I mean,
Yeah.
it was surprising that none of those guys could get hot enough to supplement that great arms in their bullpen. But you know what? You still got to play the game. And when you get on a roll like a team like the Braves did, they had to win a bunch of games towards the end just to get to the postseason. That when you have momentum, I'm telling you, man, it's the one thing. I mean, I go back to 14 when the Angels were the best team in the baseball. They had a great record. They were playing the Royals. They could have won the first 2 games at home. They had guys in scoring position late in the game, and they weren't able to get them in, which is surprising. But the Royals had momentum, and that's the thing. They had that great comeback, against the A's in the wild card game. So, and the Angels had it so easy that year. They were up by a bunch of games, so they were kind of cruising in to the postseason. Sometimes when you're being pushed, that's a huge thing going into the postseason.
Absolutely. Any final comments, Fernando?
No, Gooby, thank you so much for the time. This was a lot of fun. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it, guys.
Oh yeah, thank you so
I
much.
probably kept you on here too long, didn't I? I'm always talking too much. My wife says that all the time. Do you ever stop talking? I go, maybe when I'm sleeping, but then again, I might even be talking when I'm sleeping.
Yeah. No, and trust me, it's no inconvenience to us, man. This is awesome. Like you said, if there's one thing that I truly love that we started this podcast is not only have I always been an Angels fan, but now I have an opportunity to be a fan of a lot of the men in the organization and around the organization, because now I'm not a fan of just Gooby the commentator. I'm now a fan of Gooby the person, because now we've gotten to have this conversation and we've had so many awesome interviews, and it really is awesome to get to know some of these people, their organization, on a personal standpoint.
Yeah, I have to really say this, and I'm not saying it because I work with the Angels. Obviously, I'm an employee for Bally Sports West, but the Angel organization has been incredible. And I'm just hanging out yesterday in that golf tournament for Dennis Cole and John Carpino to be at that tournament yesterday for giving kids an opportunity that it's not easy to be able to get the money and the resources to play baseball. I mean, I grew up in that same type of environment back in Philly, so to give an opportunity for kids that might not have that normal opportunity to play this great game is great. And for them to give their time to go out there, there's some great people, and really, really great people. And, Mike Sosha was there and Ron Renicky. So these guys that were connected with the Angels are still around and thing. So like I said, it's a family, and every one of us every single person, the same thing we keep saying is, man, we got to find a way to get this team to win, because these fans have been there in droves.
Yeah.
Before, obviously the last 2 years with all the games missed and fans not able to go, 3 million plus every game, and always very, very supportive. But you want them to get to that next level and enjoy it even more so. It's great going to the game. It's great to see a generational player in Mike Trout or a phenom and Shohei Ohtani, but you want to see them guys, jumping on top of each other, winning a World Series. So individual moments are great, but winning a World Series, is like going back to being part of that thing. I'm still in shock that I was able to be part of a World Series championship club and running on the field. I told the story I was back in Kansas City a couple of weeks ago, running out of the field on Game 7, and some fan took my hat right off my head, and I was like laughing. I'm thinking, I'd never heard what the fan ever did with that hat. I don't even know what they did. They might have threw it away right away, but somehow my hat from that World Series team, we didn't get it. The guys today, they get a million hats during the course of the season. We were given one hat. Boom, that same hat. I'm telling you, that probably didn't smell real good because those hot summer days. Whoever took my hat, I don't know if they threw it away, like I said, but some place somewhere out there in Kansas City or so, they have my hat from that World Series team.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hey, but again, thank you so much, Mark, for donating your time here to the podcast. And we just want to give a special thanks to Rally Chris that got you to come on here for us. So we really appreciate his effort and him talking with you and everything. Because, again, you're so personable. That's what we love about you and a lot of the Angels people in the organization and players. Like they're it's not like most teams, because I've been on the East Coast and in the Central, and getting to know some of the players on the field or things like that, you just can't do it. It just seems like some in the Angels organization, like you talked about, they're more hands-on, they're more like just relatable, and able. There's no standoffish type thing, and we kind of really appreciate your efforts and with the broadcast and being here with us today.
I appreciate it. Yeah, Rally Chris, man. He's a good dude, man. He's crazy. Good dude. I really appreciate you having me on. By the way, I think part of the reason Mike Trout is so personable with fans, he's literally signing an autograph in the on-deck circle before he's facing, Justin Verlander throwing 100 miles an hour. He has time for everybody. So I think that helps sending the message to how important the fans are and how important, he told me flat out last year was the hardest thing he ever did was playing because there was no one there for whether he's cheering for him or if you're on the road booing him, those kind of things. Fans are, I think, I forget who, even Joe Buck might have said it the other day, how important fans are. And I'm a fan. I always say I'm a fan. I just got lucky to play the game. I'll always be a fan because I watch every sporting event there is possible. I enjoy rooting for a team. I enjoy booing the other team. Still to this day. I enjoy hating on teams.
But you're a Philly fan, so that comes natural.
Oh yeah, I enjoy hating on the Cowboys and everybody else, the Boston Celtics and all those teams like that. So, but yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on, man. This has been a good time.
Oh, really appreciate it. So anything you want to plug or give a shout out to before we get out of here?
No, man, this, like I said, I'm having, just having a blessed time just talking to you guys. And by the way, I've already started all my holiday decorations up, man. I already got my lights up, man. Don't tell anybody.
Dude, my house already looks like Santa's workshop. My fiance decorated like a week and a half ago. So
I know somebody's going to give me grief because, I got them up and I got a lot of my stuff out. It's a process for me, but I mean, because I loved Halloween too. I had a pretty good little scary little entranceway coming to my house giving out candy. So it's already flipped over to Christmas time. I feel bad. I have my Thanksgiving decorations, a few things here and there, but I'm already getting Christmas out. So people will give me some grief about that, but you know what? I'm feeling cool.
You're a big Christmas guy, right?
Yeah, I love our halfway to Christmas thing we have in the Angel Stadium. So I'm looking forward. We didn't get to do that last year, so I'm hoping they're bringing that one back this upcoming season.
So we know the Gubicza family picture is going to have a turkey front row for the Thanksgiving picture and a Christmas tree in the background.
Oh, believe me, that'll definitely be up for that one. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's going to be going up pretty soon. All my other stuff is, like my kids are like crazy like me about this too. Which I learned it all from my mom. My mom was nuts about it. So my brothers are the same way. They're the same thing. I sent a picture. I said, "Dudes, I'm already decorating." They go, "Yeah, we are too." It's something in our DNA. We're willing to take that grief from people saying it's not even Thanksgiving yet. I go, I know, that's cool, cool. But because I'm not passing Thanksgiving by because I love turkey.
Yeah.
But, there's not a whole lot of great Thanksgiving movies either. There's a lot of good Christmas movies. So I'm already, believe it or not, guys, between me and you, I won't tell anybody. I'm already on that Hallmark channel watching all the Christmas shows already, man.
There you go.
That's cool. Hey,
I'm crushing myself on that one.
Where do you rank the Christmas Story in your top Christmas movies?
Oh, you know what? Remember I dressed up as Ralphie a couple years ago. I had my rabbit suit on for that one, but
I remember.
It's one of and I actually visited the house in Cleveland, 10 years ago, and the lamp there in the window. I mean, it's trippy, man, to do it, to go see it. Yeah, if you go to Cleveland, you got to go see it. I like it. I might like it. My brother-in-law is a gigantic fan of it. I mean, I'm Christmas Vacations. I love that. Any version of the Grinch, It's a Wonderful Life, but I have a big hole in my heart every time White Christmas comes on with Bing Crosby.
Oh, okay.
I still think Bing Crosby and David Bowie singing "Little Drummer Boy" is the all-time great. All-time great.
Okay. All right.
But I can keep going on. Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Yes. I mean, believe it or not, I got like my Pandora music. I already got my Bing Crosby holiday stuff going too. Now I'm waiting for Coast 103.5 to get it rocking.
Oh, yeah, that's what they do. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, Gooby. You gave us so much time and so much knowledge. We really appreciate it.
You got it, guys. I appreciate it, man. Have a great holiday.
You too. Thank you.
You too, Gooby. Thank you.
I'm sure we're going to hear some pretty good stuff with the Angels pretty soon. This is my feeling.
Awesome. We're gonna keep that clip. We'll play it once they make a big splash.
Yeah, Frank. Follow Gooby on Twitter. That way, if he does it, you know who to go for.
Yeah.
All right, Mark. Have a good one.
I'll go with my Tony Romo. I'm going first guessing. I'm going to say they're going to do some stuff.
Yeah. All right.
There you go. The hot takes.
All right, Mark. Take care.
All right. Have a good one.